and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the text flag, but its allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Gracious God, thank you for the city of Joshua and for the leaders and citizens here today. I pray that tonight you would give our leaders wisdom as they order the life of your city. We ask that you bless all of the families who are represented here today. We ask for unity, and we ask mostly, Lord, that you would make this city, Joshua, Texas, look a bit more like heaven. We ask these things in the mighty and matchless name of your Son, Jesus. All God's people said, Amen. Also, City Council, everyone present, September 23rd, we have our Lord's Acre fundraiser that supports missions here in Joshua. We would love to see you there. So, awesome. Appreciate those things there.
Okay. At this time, we're going to go into our budget workshop. Mr. Peacock?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe you have in your packets the proposed fiscal year 2023-24 annual budget. This has taken quite some time to get to. There have been many challenges met and some rearranged and pushed down the road and made up where we can and postponed where we could. But you may recall that council asked that we provide an increase in the homestead exemption for the city, which the council did vote to do, and that is reflective in this budget. And you asked us to tighten our belts to make sure we could get there without going too far into debt, and so we were able to do that as well. I want to thank the staff. Many people have worked many hours. We have done and redone and refigured and wore out calculators and trying to get this all squared away. And I appreciate all of the time that each of them have spent. The proposed annual budget before you appropriates $8.157 million. Budget is balanced, including some funds, just under $388,000 pulled from the current budget for some incomplete items and for some fiscal challenges and shortfalls for the upcoming year. The revenues over expenditures proposed before you are $112,261, which you will be able to allocate as you see fit. Just understand that there are a few little last minute things that are still coming in, so there could be some minor changes to this. And of course, if you choose to fund some of the options that are currently not funded, those funds will be available to you for that matter. The tax rate recommendation this year will be the voter approved rate of 0.651229 cents per hundred, which is less than the current rate of 0.711493 by 0.602645 or 6 cents. The rate for maintenance and operation proposed is 0.501 cents per hundred, and the debt service rate proposed to be 0.150 per hundred. This year's rate will produce a decrease in tax revenues of $131,000 or just over 4%. Debt service projected to be at $1.2 million. Of that amount, $185,502 will be allocated from excess debt collection from 2022, and the remaining $1.048 million is allocated for the debt service rate in this proposed fiscal year. The estimated tax base is $598,335,630, and will provide $2.937 million for fiscal year 2024. Sales tax is projected to provide an additional $1.4 million, an increase of $150,000 or 12% over the current fiscal year. What is included in this year's budget? We have made some changes in different line items. We've moved positions to and established some new departments with HR coming on board, made some finance changes, made some changes in the mayor council line and moved the city secretary's operation into that line item. So some of these things may look a little odd to us because they're new to this budget. We have included funding for record retention, $16,000 for Laserfish upgrades and audio visual for the chambers here, some of which is being undertaken this year. $14,000 for election expenses. There were no increases in administration. Police department, we've included $48,755 for new body cameras, $25,640 for dispatch fees and radio agreement, $20,000 for patrol vehicles, and just over $6,000 for additional training and ammunition. In public works, $19,000 for a tilt back trailer, $8,200 for a hopper broom, $13,000 for a street painter to replace our striping machine. In development services, there's $5,000 in new computers, $2,000 in software. Fire department, just over $5,300 for new computers, $2,800 for a gas powered fan, $13,000 just over for new supply hose for the new engine, $1,600 for rescue chainsaw, just under $9,000 for CAD license, and $21,000 in additional small equipment and maintenance items. In animal services, just over $5,000 in new kennel doors to complete what we started last year in the dog kennel, $1,600 for new computer, $3,300 for exterior lighting for the two vehicles they have. Parks department will be replacing zero-turn mowers for $29,000, and the infield machine, new replacement for the ball fields at $36,000. The fire marshal's office will receive $13,295 for body cameras. Human resource department, over $5,000 for applicant tracking software, and $5,400 for a benefit administration system for employees. We've added $5,000 in the training budget in finance. The cost of living increases this year, we have dropped from 10% last year to 5% this year at a cost of $201,479. There is a salary reclassification pay plan for adjustments, which you will hear about shortly from Brittany, in the amount of $36,263. And I'm very happy to say that Brittany and Amber have rose to the occasion after I have drove them nuts over our benefits and getting the benefits down to where they are a true benefit to employees, where they can actually afford to use the insurance. They have put together an incredible plan, and with adjustments and savings and some changes that we made and backing out some items that we felt we were willing to sacrifice to get there, the increase to the budget will be $34,444. And as you will hear shortly from Brittany, it's a very good plan. It'll go a long ways for not only retention of staff, but recruitment of staff for the future. What is not included in the budget that was requested at some point? I always like for you guys to get a look at these things, and they are included in the packet, but I wanted to hit some of the hot spots. There was a $5,000 training program in administration. In the police department, there's certification pay at $27,950. And we are still working on that plan and hope to be able to bring a plan to you at mid-year. We'll see how that shakes out, but we have not completely given up on that. And there was a request for 2 additional patrol sergeant positions totaling $148,000. In Public Works, there was a request for another full-time position. Development Services requested an additional $25,000 for staff time for our planner. The fire department, there were several requests for training upgrades for staff for paramedic school, fitness equipment, portable radios, hydraulic equipment, video monitoring system, which actually will be provided, but in a different citywide package. So it won't come specifically from their fire department or from their budget, which is on for approval tonight. Thermal imaging cameras, ballistic helmets, some fans, and a few $12,000 in miscellaneous other spending. All of those items are itemized in your packet. In the fire marshal's office, a vehicle mounted camera, a rifle vault, and some AR-15 rifles. We will be looking at a small amount of debt incurred for some public works equipment for a dump truck, tack distributor, and a backhoe that has been approved in the CIP plan. $125,000 in the fire department for a brush truck, which will be paying half of the cost of the truck, and the ESD has agreed to provide the other half of funding. And what is not funded, or what we do not have a price tag for, is the relocation of public works and the park facilities to remove them from the downtown area. We're working on those numbers now, but I did feel like I needed to include that in this statement because they did rank high on the list in our strategic planning last week. Those are the things in a nutshell that have come together. You'll hear about a few other pieces of it with our insurance benefits here shortly. Again, I want to reiterate, everybody really knuckled down. We cut where we could cut. We had some, the 6 cents. It's about $60,000 a penny that we needed to cut to get down below our no new revenue, or our rollback rate, if you will. You obviously have the option to not go to 6 cents if you choose, but if you do anything less than cents, you run the risk of an election to do that. We're there. I probably would not have went quite that far, but it's necessary. And I think the way that the legislation is structured now, what we're going to see over time, cities of our size, is we will end up taking on more debt and decreasing tax rates, because where previously we could pay for $250,000 pieces of equipment out of just reserves, we're getting to a time where you just can't do that anymore. That number is getting lower and lower. So short-term financing is becoming more and more prevalent, and I think you're going to see that over time. But we also had we did not hit our budget numbers in development services. Development slowed down a little bit. Developers held back on new phases, which basically had lots that were not available. We're seeing that those new phases have been completed now. The third one is, I think, days away from being signed off on by Public Works. The streets are poured. They're just finishing up grading and last minute issues in Mockingbird. That's going to open up quite a few new lots where building permits are being issued at a more steady rate, multiples in a week, whereas before that had just almost come to a stop. So we are going to make up some of the ground, but we're not going to make up all of it. And then I think that combined with the decrease in tax revenues, the overwhelming number of new property appraisal challenges or protests, those numbers were many times higher than they normally were. And We've estimated what we have received. I think we've estimated conservatively. Hopefully that'll come back a little better. We may have a little more room to breathe at mid-year, but so far I think it's all doable, and I'm happy to entertain any questions that you have.
My first question, I noticed several departments are getting new computers. Are we about to get rid of the homemade computers and be back to good working computers?
Yes, I think the ones that you're seeing replaced now are the oldest ones. A couple of them are increases where we've had staff changes that need them, but almost all of these are replacements. And I think that yeah, 10 being the number less than that. So yeah, those are.
And those would be included in these that are already been replaced, so not very many left.
We're almost out of that. Everything now is Dell. Some of the laptops aren't. We've got some Dell and we've got some Lenovo's and the laptops, but almost all of the desktops are Dell. And we've got all those changed out, and we'll have those on a plan now where they'll be moved out, and it's a much better system. The provider we have is far and above. I think what we had before was probably very good for home systems, small business. We outgrew that outfit, and we've learned some things about what we were getting from them. That's why we're staying with a specific type of computer now, so we know where we're at.
The IT item in the budget, we're still experiencing IT problems on a pretty regular basis, from what I understand. Are we anywhere closer? Is there any more needs to be in?
I don't think we are experiencing routinely. There's some glitches with police department. I think software download stuff that I know that we're working on. I'm not aware of any significant. Do we have any? I'm not aware of any.
We had a few issues offloading some of the footage, so we added an extra AP out to the back of the department. As far as I know, that's fixed that.
There's still some hardware issues that are left over from the previous provider.
And that's what.
But those will be rectified in this current budget.
So we're trying to move away from the.
That's the camera system downloads. The cradle point stuff. Okay.
Activity issues. And then this new access point has fire offloading any card footage. And then the body worn cameras should have been approved, that will certainly rectify our body cameras.
Follow up with you, and your question. You looked into and compared the cost of outright purchase versus leasing the computer systems going forward.
I did look at leasing options, and Patrick and I had kind of looked at it a little bit, but we had already replaced about half. So at some point I would like to look at leasing options, but it is very competitive. And we have computers that only last for a couple of years.
Yeah,
And so
okay.
Dell to
We
replace
keep that
it.
in mind, maybe it will balance out to our benefit, to start the
Yeah.
leasing program as versus that. I just want to bring that up.
No, Patrick did but he got pricing and everything for me. It's just, we had already replaced so many of them at that point. I think, but they would separate and slowly with the phasing them, but.
They're doing life cycle management.
Yeah, especially in
And then they're fully supported.
high usage, like what we're getting into now.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot more use and abuse.
Certainly take a look at it.
Yeah.
On the benefits package, what is the percentage increase over last year's budget? It says $34,000. But that's like a 6% increase as opposed to the 26% we were anticipating.
Now, the increase was more than that, and so we offset that increase by, you may remember last year, we funded refunds for people who met the deductible. We'd refund part of that to them. We pulled that money back, pulled that benefit back. We pulled back where we were loading flexible spending accounts or HSAs. we were front loading some of those and we've pulled that back. That'll be employee funded. And so we offset that cost. Do you have a percentage? Do you know the percentage?
I don't have the, but I could help you.
We can certainly get it for you. I don't know it off the top of my head.
It's not near as big a percentage as it had been in the past with the changes and
No, and we were able to, I think because of the number of people, we had some opportunities, but we're also changing providers. And so we're going from Blue Cross Blue Shield to United Healthcare. And it's a PPO plan. I don't want to steal all Brittany's thunder. Because I know they worked very hard on keeping me from having to fit over it. So benefits has been a big deal to me since I started in here, and I think now we've got something that I think the staff will be overwhelmed when they see it. It's really good. And it was an increase, but it was one that we could cover. It's getting to be a challenge each year. I know at some point it's going to change a bit. But fortunately this year there were some other things that, we really needed to adopt a more standardized pay plan that put positions in categories and standardize what we're doing as we grow. We weren't able to afford those adjustments just yet, something that we'll try and look at later, either later on in the year or next year. We'll take a look at it again, but salaries is always a challenge, especially now that both cities beside us have upper management positions in transition. There's always fear of losing people to fill those slots, and we have people that have done a really good job here, and people are looking at them and noticing them. And I'm trying to fight that off as best I can.
you have any questions?
No, sir.
Right?
The two patrol sergeant, are those additions or are they transitions? Is it those would be additions? Okay. And then one was.
Is it a staff?
I had it here. I'm good.
Okay.
I see it on. Speak up, trust me.
Angela, any questions?
I have one question. I can probably answer that. The hotel tax fund. Did we ever come up with some way to spend that money other than give it back after so many years?
We offered them some back last year and they didn't want it. But you may recall, we offered them $50,000 last year to tell them they could upgrade and replace anything: carpet, television, furniture, beds, paint, and they declined the offer. So we are looking at something now that I'm pushing through, making sure that meets the criteria. But it's a little early to announce it yet, but we are looking, yes.
I'm just looking at here.
Hopefully you'll see that. Yeah, it is building up. I think it's $240,000 or something.
John? Good presentation, Mr. Peacock.
I did have one.
You can't go back now.
Angela had a question.
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Why does fire marshals need 3 AR-15s?
Well, there's 3 of them that are commissioned in the fire department that are arson investigators. They're fully commissioned officers. And the thought was that as we go through the training for shooter safety, active shooter training, that all of our law enforcement units are equipped identically. That was the thought behind it. We just couldn't get there this year. They've all been trained in the active shooter stuff. They will be a part of those scenarios. To what role, I don't know. I guess it just depends on when they come in, but they are commissioned police officers that do have full police powers. And so it'll just create some standard. They'd be standard with the other patrol vehicles.
Other questions? Okay, next item is discussing a direction regarding future budget workshop dates.
Mary, this is kind of up to y'all. We've always, made available to plan a date if y'all believe there needed to be a work session to go over things. We have not done that in the past 2 years. I don't know if y'all feel like you will get another look at this budget in September. But that is the night that it will be approved. And so, if there's a belief amongst y'all that y'all need to meet again to go over some of the stuff, that's at y'all's option. We just need to plan it between now and your meeting in September.
We didn't go into any detail on the EDC budgets, A and B. Is there anything in either one of those that we will be approving that we ought to go out in front?
No, there's no new spending in, right now proposing A or B, their budgets. They got their first look at them this week also. The only real issue, I guess, is going to be out of type B. We know that there's new spending for the zero turn mowers and for the infill machine, though I expect my recommendation be that they use fund balance to pay for those, so there won't be any debt incurred. And then there may be some debt in type B later on in the year as we get closer to moving them out of that facility over to the new Gregory facility of Public Works. And you could see some spending there, but other than that, it's all just standard stuff. Yes, sir.
So, do I feel like we need to get together and have another budget workshop, or you feel pretty good with what we got? Johnny?
I think I did a great job. I'd be willing to meet. I mean, we've got a lot of unfunded items going on, so we could help figure out what to do that. I would be able to. I promise it.
Yeah, I think it will be good for us to look at things again. Discuss them.
Well, whatever the council wants to represent the government, but there are a lot of unanswered questions in there. Usually it's some funded. Well, I agree.
And I'll be there with some.
Yeah, I think it's important with the way that our funding is not static, it's fluctuates, and know that we didn't get everything that we wanted. I do appreciate greatly that everyone did bring back what they could. But we also don't leave money on the table. So I think it's our responsibility to revisit that when it's where we kind of see where we're at and make decisions on. And I think it's also going to, if we're looking at this kind of midway through, it's going to give us a head start on thinking about for the next year.
Budget
If we overshoot and we undershoot. So that we're not kind of completely starting from scratch when we get there. So I think midway is definitely what the.
So does anybody want to propose a day? Let's see, you have
What about September 7th? That's a Thursday.
This is for revisiting the budget before we approve this one, or are you talking about a mid-year review?
this
This
would be to approve this one.
Oh, okay. I don't specifically have any questions about this particular, I thought we were talking about.
September 7th.
Yes, sir.
With the additional funding.
Now, we would do that at mid-year.
Yeah, the years. Now this was to go over this budget one more time, make recommendations for some of these unfunded things.
Anytime.
So September 7th.
Does that work?
It works for me, just needs to be.
At 6:30.
That works for everyone?
Everybody?
Yeah.
All right, you good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Staff, you good with that? Let's go ahead and schedule that then for a special meeting on Thursday, September 7th at 6:30 here at City. Any other questions on the budget before we move on? Okay, this time we'll move into our regular work session, review and discuss questions related to the budget report and financial statement for July 2023. Yes, Peter.
It's the biggest thing, well, not a whole lot. There's, the expenditures are a little bit over because we went back and pulled back some of the funding from this year's budget. It's a savings that we were gonna roll over. We went ahead and chased down some of that, so some of the numbers are a little bit over, but we're at 83% of the budget year. Really don't have any significant surprise outlays that we saw this go around. It's nothing really jumps out other than a crazy water bill for the splash pad.
Any questions about the budget? Okay. On to item number 2, discuss and receive updates on recommendation on the food truck ordinance.
I sent a memo out, Mayor, a few days ago. We did not get as far on that as we wanted to get. Aaron was in school all this week also. He's been spending some time with the consultant we've got in, and this is where I have been. We will make every effort to have that for you in September.
Everybody get that? Yes. All right. Item number 3, discuss and receive the final report from the strategic planning session. Yeah.
We have. I don't know if I can find it in here. I think Alice, you sent it to me.
Yes. Yes, sir.
There we go. Okay, so we did the planning session. I got a couple of you guys got things sent over to me. Weren't able to be there and got stuff in. And so if you'll recall, we went through, we talked about previous goals, current goals, and then we went through heard from department heads and went through the ranking system. You were given 6 top choices, 5 high choices, and 3 low choices. In the top category, and this is in no particular order, just the top rankings. The first was the complete detailed plan for development services, review of zoning ordinance, review of development standards, consider adoption of new building codes, review of fee schedule, permitting process. All of those things encompassed in the development services. The second item was to adopt an annual employee compensation plan. Policy manual requires that be adopted annually, and so we have that draft ready for you. You'll see some of it tonight, and then 3 different versions of it going forward in the months to come. And then what I think we're going to do is, at your direction, is just include the employee compensation plan with the annual budget. That way it guarantees that it's reviewed and approved annually. So those items include to identify a pay plan, parity to maintain competitiveness, identify and plan for a pay parity to maintain competitiveness, pay plan for sworn personnel, implementation of certification pay, and a plan for increased staffing over the next 5 years. The third top item was street repair and maintenance, annual review of street conditions, including updates to the street index, and review of truck routes to direct commercial traffic to streets that can better withstand the additional weight of trucks. Third was a street and drainage impact fee study. Create a plan that identify funding for projects identified in the completed drainage study. Projects to include known drainage issues resulting from previous development, new growth, drainage mitigation, and bar ditch maintenance. And the next was the bond election implementation. which is up for discussion tonight as well. And that was the 6 top priorities. The high priorities were enhanced code enforcement to review and revise nuisance codes as needed, remain proactive in addressing code violations and concerns to keep the city aesthetically pleasing. Next high was economic development. Complete construction of the container park and outdoor stage venue. Continue to engage university on museum partnership and the construction of the museum. Continue to push the facade grant to aid in beautification of the city. The next was public works and park recreation relocation. You may recall that we've worked into our downtown plan to move those two out of downtown and make those property available for parking and or development. To take them out of the middle of everything. We have purchased 5 acres over off of Gregory, across the street from Atmos Energy, to relocate them, and Public Works has begun clearing that property and hauling off stuff, and so we'll start working for those. Excuse me. The next one is the city park construction and operations to review and plan overall maintenance and operations of city parks, plan for special events, ball field rental and maintenance schedules, and completion of the Cooper Valley Neighborhood Park. The next one was downtown improvements and implementation funding for update the detailed criteria for development downtown, revitalization and beautification of the Highway 174 corridor. Those were the high priorities. And the low priorities, which are still priorities, are the one was the continued upgrades, audio-visual upgrades to the council chambers, drilling ordinance and road use fees implementation. And I think we've determined that we can't implement road usage fees for those trucks on public roads. So that question may have been answered, but we are currently looking at the drilling ordinance. The fire department is looking at it for the inspection processes through them. We're looking at the fees that are the permit fees for inspections, stuff that have to happen with those annually. And so that is currently ongoing. And then finally, the street index, purchase of a street index grading system. We have a system that is in trial right now. They've done some streets and we've just now began to analyze that data. It's pretty impressive. It videotapes the streets. It shows the cracks, the potholes, where they are, how big they are. It rates condition rating to the street. It really does. It's really impressive to see that software. And we hope to have those things available for y'all's review very shortly. The items that did not meet, that were projected, that did not make the list, were the Wayfinder signs to update or remove the existing signs. This was a company that came in years ago and planted all these signs in the street corners, had the city's logo on top, and it had directions to various things. That's probably still something that's a pretty easy task to undertake, and we can certainly take a look at that.
Removing them, or
I'd probably update them. I've seen a lot of cities have updated them. I don't know how effective they are, quite honestly. They've been there for an awful long time. But
ugly and they're
yeah, they're not really attractive. They were a great idea when they came out because everybody was trying to get the little bandit signs off the side of the road from the builders. And every weekend they just lined the roads with these little signs that blew all over the place. But I don't know how effective they are now. But we'll take a look at what can be done for them. Also included was the fire training facility, fire department staffing levels, and I'm surprised to say paperless agendas. I really thought that would make the list, but we may still try and quit printing things here. Just we won't we won't tell you about it.
But the majority of it was not so much paperless, it was getting our forms online. So like a building permit, they can fill it out or find out immediately if it's been approved or not, all electronically.
Yeah, a lot of that,
Thank you. The Laserfish does, it, we already have it, that's correct. It's already paid for. Just, yes, this program. Mhm.
Hey, anybody have any questions?
Just had a question about street improvements and street work. I see a whole lot of that covered in the budget. I mean, are they not budget items or, you know?
most of, well, we always budget for street repairs and maintenance, usually around $500,000 in their budget. But they've also got a little over $2 million maybe in CIP. That is for Main Street, for the bigger projects that we bid out, that's where those are.
I just caution that we put expenditures out there for new equipment to do street work and we just don't use it. So,
So we're using that.
I mean, it just doesn't seem to be
Should see
getting
that.
enough done.
Well, there's
So-
only 5 of them. I
Yeah.
mean, that's true. It's
So
most of that stuff is, and the asphalt machines are subject to who we can get to haul it. We've only got one dump truck big enough to haul any amount of asphalt. And so sometimes that's a little challenging and it takes several people to, when you're using that machines, you gotta have
That's what I'm
flaggers.
saying is we need to make sure that's thought through and our ability to handle that versus what we end up coming in here and voting on is to contract it out. We just
Right.
need to make sure that we can handle this, a paver or even the street striping machine. I mean, things like that. Do we have the manpower to utilize it? Are we gonna get our money's worth out of it?
Well,
Or is
we
it easier just
for these things on this level, absolutely, the strapping machine, although it is very expensive, is, you know, it's not a truck mounted one to strap the highways. You can't do that. It's for fire lanes, parking lots, small projects, things that we do routinely. Right, that's exactly what it is. And then, of course, the other stuff is, you know, and I will say too, this is the first time in probably 18 months that they've been fully staffed now. So that's going to help a little bit too. So there's quite a bit of stuff that they've got on the books. There's nothing sitting over there gathering dust. I can promise you that. Because
And what they do handle in-house, it saves us a significantly large amount of money, but the bigger projects, they obviously, they don't have that volume of equipment to handle it.
Right.
yeah, if it's a block or so, we can normally repave it ourselves. If it's stretches like Main Street and Caddo, some of those we can't do those, but
Any other questions? Okay. I do have update from mayor and council members and updates from city staff members. Would I have anything going on or happened this last month they want to talk about?
I'll be here.
Okay. That anything anyone talk about what they done this last month? Right.
I did attend the fair and where it was down in Burleson. It was quite nice. Vendors showed up and things like that. And that was been done a lot of that this year. We're glad to talk and counteractive if we tried to do it now. But we need to keep those kind of things in mind to try to build our city up and have like more of those functions. I mean, last year we did the outdoor, quite a few outdoor things. And kind of dry years.
It's the back to school bash.
Are we going? That is going.
We're.
We have the new uniforms next week.
Was that last week?
In the four last.
Oh.
And then
So we got here-
26.
I'm just been busy, I think. Maybe it's just me.
It was, it was really.
Are we planning on the Christmas on Main Street again?
I'm not involved in it this year.
We are. Yeah, I think they're still planning to do it.
It's on the chamber schedule.
I did go to the, well, the new Ramsey Ferguson today. I was invited by the Ferguson mayor and, it's a nice place. They've got a lot of stuff going in and they're little old town area down there, so it's nice. All right. Public forum. We didn't have anybody sign up to speak for anything.
No, sir.
Anybody got anything they want to say? All right, consent agenda. Without objection, we'll split these items separately. I think a couple of them we do need to have some good information on it. Item number one, discuss, consider a possible action on the July 20th, 2023 meeting minutes. Anybody have any questions or corrections to the meeting minutes? I'll entertain motions.
Commission, we accept the minutes of statement.
I have a motion by Shelley, seconded by Mike to accept the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item number two, discuss, consider possible action on interlocal cooperation agreement with Johnson County for dispatch services for the fire department for budget year 23 to 24. Chief Brigham. Is that Tom Griffin? The fire department.
You see it.
Just for the fire marshal or for the police department?
Dispatching in general.
I believe it's the police department. Oh, okay.
Well, Chief, we'll let you. We'll let you know. What do you chief stand up and start talking?
Be as facetious as possible because it's one of my favorite topics. Unfortunately, it is necessary. We don't have a way around it. So the proposed fee this year is $53,101. So last year, the dispatch fee was $50,601. So we're looking at an increase of only 6%. So still a big chunk of money, but our increase is only 6%. Comparison purposes, our radio has gone up 18%. That went from 71,000 last year to 86,000. This year, Grandview PD went up 40%, Venus PD went up 22%, and King went up 80%. So in terms of agencies, like we're doing a pretty good job. The officers are out there doing the best they can to mitigate these costs by doing a lot of self-initiated activity instead of relying on dispatch. So we're doing what we can to mitigate those costs. But unfortunately, we are subject to the sheriff's office. We'll do what we can to mitigate it, but unfortunately, here we are once again.
But we're doing a good job. They got to do good service.
Relevant question. They provide the service to us. Could it be better? Absolutely, everything can be better. But it we don't have any opportunity. And citizens getting hurt because of the patch, so I'll call it a win. But like with anything, they're only gonna be as good as their service that we explain, just like we are, and so. I know they strive to provide professional services just like we do. Like I said, it's service awesome.
So is there a feedback system that you can feedback there?
There has been, we've had some complaints that have been addressed. We had some incidents complaints since they came up. But I addressed them. So the team, some of my concerns, he addressed them. There is a difference in perception. One incident I mentioned, we had the officer that unfortunately had to witness a gentleman take his own life. And there were some concerns about communication. And that concern was that dispatch was not giving the officers information about that subject. Just having a limit on it, presenting a dangerous situation.
They were aware of that.
Dispatch was not aware. The impression was is that they were aware of it, did not hear us. Addressed that concern with Sheriff King. He investigated it. It turned out dispatch was not aware of it. That information was not relayed from the complainant to dispatch. Now, whether or not it was because dispatch didn't ask the right questions, that wasn't determined. But it was not the fault solely of dispatch not providing that information. They did relay it that they had. They're not concerned.
So there's some feedback.
There is recourse.
As long as there's a communication. Absolutely.
Any other questions? I kind of mentioned this to you the other night. I know we get charged so much per call that they receive. Whether it's an emergency call or whether it's, hey, come get the cat out of the tree. Okay. Is there any way of dividing out the number of non-emergency calls versus the number of emergency calls?
I can ask them to see if they can differentiate between administrative call versus a 911 call. I can just ask and see if there's something that
And then there's also a click fee. Every time the mic's key.
but there is, if the officer utilizes dispatch to initiate that call. There is a standing order or standing rule within the police department. Unless it's now for safety issue, they are expecting to initiate all the activity. The computers are working, that's some technology. There's other variables that play into this. But they do their very best to initiate calls so that anything beyond the initiation of that call does not incur that cost. It's not always possible, it's not always feasible. But they do a very, very good job of mitigating it. That's why that increase was only 6%, very minimal compared to a lot of the other cities. They do have a really good job doing that.
Okay. I know, we have set hours at the police department office to take non-emergency calls and so on and so forth. I'm just wondering if there's a break point where we might be able to find a way of taking those non-emergency calls and not putting them through the sheriff's department dispatch as long as they're charging us so much for rain down there. I mean, it's crazy. And I recommend that all of our citizens talk to their county commissioners concerning this double taxation for the sheriff's department that we are getting. So, and I say that openly, and I'll say that straight to the faces of everybody in Cleveland. So, thank you very much, Steve. Okay, and discuss, do we need to take any action on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have the proposed pricing and everything for the 23-24 year. You have,
I move to approve the local cooperation agreement with Newark County Dispatch Services.
Okay, I have a motion by Johnny, seconded by Dakota to accept the interlocal cooperation agreement with Johnson County Dispatch Services for the budget year 23-24. Any discussion? All in favor? Yes. Okay, just out of curiosity, Chief Griffin, your dispatch comes through the ESD, doesn't it?
For fire, for law enforcement, which would be the fire marshal's office, we go through law enforcement dispatch, but we don't self-initiate calls, or we don't initiate calls to dispatch, I could say.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. All right, item number 3, discuss, consider possible action on approving development agreements. Alice, is our standard?
The standard, been working on for about a year. This includes 3 development agreements that the property owners have signed.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the development agreement.
I have a motion by Mike, seconded by Angela to approve working with the development agreements with the any discussion? All in favor? All unanimous. All right. This time we'll move to our regular agenda items. Item number one, discuss, consider possible action on a resolution proposing the adoption of an ad valorem tax rate and schedule a public hearing subject to all public hearing requirements of the Texas Property Tax Code. Mr. Peacock.
So this is it's a standard resolution where you have to propose the adoption of the proposed rate. You can go lower, but you cannot go higher. And so this would set that rate and then schedule the public hearing.
And could you go through those the number that you
The proposed rate would be 0.651229 per $100.
and our current rate is 0.7.
711 239 or hang on, let me give it to you. Let's be third row here. 711493.
This would be if we set the rate at the 0.6512229. We couldn't raise it.
Cannot raise it, but
Not
you
raise
can
it
lower
from
it.
that point. If we set it at a higher rate, we could come back for the adoption of the budget and lower it to this rate.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions, comments? Discussion, Johnny?
I definitely don't think we need to raise it. This weather.
Mike? Angela?
Mr. Waldron.
Mike Stone. Kelly? I'm always for tax cuts. And if we adopt anything other than the lower rate, then we are setting ourselves up for a possible election.
There could be a petition filed. They have a time frame to do it, that if they met the criteria, then yeah, you'd be subject to an election.
Okay, so it looks like the consensus is to go with the recommended rate. Do I have a motion?
I move to set the rate at 0.651229.
Second. Okay. Well, I have a motion by Johnny, seconded by Dakota, to set the ad valorem tax rate for the 23-24 budget.
Sir, this is just a proposed. We cannot set the tax rate until September.
Proposing the adoption.
Yes.
Okay, excuse me. Proposing the adoption of the ad valorem tax rate for the 23-24 budget year to 0.651229. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item number 2, discuss, consider possible action on an ordinance amending the Joshua subdivision ordinance to be in full compliance and meet all House Bill number 3699 requirements. Ms. Holloway.
Mayor, if I may turn this over to the city attorney to explain.
Mayor and council, the last session of the legislature, they changed some of the shot clock provisions, which is how long the city has to consider a plat that gets filed. And they changed the definition of when a plat is filed. So that means basically that when the developer drops off a plat, that you have the P&Z would have 30 days to approve it with conditions or deny it. For a lot of cities, that's obviously pretty difficult to do, to have that reviewed. So there were some things that were kind of thrown into the legislation to help cities with that. One is that you can have submittal dates. For example, you could say we accept plats on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, no other times. So you can't have those types of dates. You can also one of the new things, you can delegate approval or denial of a plat to a city staff member. So if someone comes in, for example, P&Z meeting's not going to be held because of Christmas holidays. You could have, if there are issues with the plat, we can delegate that authority. Here we delegate it to Mike to deny the plat if it didn't meet the requirements. And then the person who had the plat denied can appeal that to the city council, to the planning and zoning commission. So these new modifications kind of allow for, even though there's a 30-day time period to approve it, if there are some glitches along the way, it can be addressed administratively. And you can set when people can come in and actually file, so they don't come in every day to file and trigger the 30-day time clock from getting started. So these are mostly technical amendments to subdivision regulations, and this ordinance that you have before you went through our subdivision code and just made the revisions pursuant to the new state statute. And be happy to answer any
That
questions.
30-day clock is just for P and Z, not for council.
Right.
Is that just for developers only, for residents?
It's for anybody who submits a plat.
Have questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. By Merle, do I have a second? No? Okay, have a vote by Merle, second by Shelley to adopt the ordinance. An ordinance amending the Joshua subdivision ordinance to be in full compliance and meet all House Bill number 3699 requirements. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Yeah. Item number 3, discuss, consider possible action on an ordinance calling a bond election to be held in the city of Joshua, Texas, making provisions for the conduct of a joint election and resolving other matters incident related to such election. Ms. House.
Mayor, City Council, last month, the recommendation from the committee was made to the council to call a bond election for November for a new police department, city hall complex, and for streets. This ordinance was written by the bond counselor to call the election for November.
If I may.
Go ahead.
So, of course, you know, the recommendation of the the bond committee, the two propositions, 15 million for police and administration complex and 10 million for street improvements. So Samco is here tonight if you have questions, but I want to make sure that that I make this point very clearly. We've asked them to provide what this would look like if we issued this debt. The effect on the tax rate, if all $25 million were issued, would be 12 cents, which would move the tax rate to 7.764. And so I want to be very clear in kind of putting out that and making sure that you understand that you are not willing to assess that value. We should not issue these bonds because we cannot cover it in the budget with the tax cut we just did, the way that the laws are structured now. We cannot service this debt without significant cuts in services. And I do mean significant.
Anything else?
No, sir. And I'm sorry, Ryan is here from Samco. If you guys have any questions, I'm sure he's loaded up to answer them for you. Some of y'all might remember Ryan from Southwest Security or something. So
Ryan Cunningham, I worked in the city from 2006 to 12, so I'm just, it's uncomfortable on this straight feedback. Glad to answer any questions you have. As Mr. Pete stated, it'd be 12 cents to do all 25 million. We try to be conservative in our estimates with interest rates, but as you know, interest rates are all over the place, conservative in our growth projections for the city. So we think it costs 12 cents on the tax rate to do all 25 million. There's two ballot propositions, right? One for 15 million, one for 10. They go to voters separately. One could pass, one could not pass, both not pass, both. And also both did pass. You don't have to do all 25 million all at once. You could do 15 million, 10. This is just saying, going out to the voters. But we think that if you did all at once, it'd be about 12 cents. But if growth came in lower, we would pull back on how quick we issued it. And you don't want to issue money for projects. If you can't spend the money fast enough to do those projects, you don't want to be a bank, right? So I'm glad to answer any questions that you have about anything you want to get. So.
Do you have any questions?
The questions are to the city staff. What are your commitments for communication to the community on educating them on our need and our plans?
If you decide to go through with this, then we will immediately start putting out. We're prepared to do mail outs. We're prepared to do flyers. We've been working with information on social media sites to schedule town hall meetings at various places here. There's been mention of Mariposa meeting with the group up there, and then we would offer to do however many were necessary, but we could sit down and do question and answers, do tours of the facilities that's been discussed. All of those things would be on the table. And I think that it would have to be a very aggressive effort, just because the school bond is out there. There's already opposition to it that's organized, and I assume that it would spill over to here too. So, I mean, I'm the type of guy that, you never go wrong when you give it to the voters. So we're happy to do either way. We'll get the information out and do everything that we can do short of breaking the law, and pushing to prove our point, to try to show it. I mean, we're certainly willing to do that.
We just don't want to spend the money for the election because there's a significant cost involved in that if we're not making every effort to do due diligence to educate on what the reason why we're asking this, the reason why we're looking at it this way.
We have already worked out some people to help kind of cheerlead this message. They'll post some of these events to meet with people, to visit with them through some outside agencies that will provide all the factual information that they need and be there to answer questions. And so the staff will certainly commit to the time and dedication to get the information out there.
I got a couple of questions. Will the public be told that there will be a 12% increase in their taxes if they pass this?
I think they have to be told that.
Definitely.
Yes, there's actually an exhibit in the back of the resolution before you that states what the tax rate, it says what it will be on a $100,000 property net of exemption for each proposition. So it says right there, that's required for them to be able to see when they go into vote on each proposition.
So if can you break down the city hall and the police department, and that instead of maybe doing two, they may want to do one? I mean, that's a big old thing to swallow.
We would have to have a third, I think, have to have a third option. And one of the reasons they didn't do that was because they didn't want to create confusion. That they wanted to keep them joint. That was a conversation that the bond committee had. But I think to give them a choice of 15 or a choice of 7.5, or however you looked at it, I think that would be another. I think it would take another bond.
Correct.
The other thing too, to bear in mind, the intent is that when and if these facilities are relocated, these properties would be available for sale, and the sale, or whether Tybay buys them for planned development or whether a developer buys them, however that works out, those funds could be directly used. And we may not, say for City Hall, we might not have to issue all 15 million. Nothing says we have to. Maybe we only need 13 and we use the sale of this to make up the difference. That's all possible, but we won't know until we get there. The building across the street is probably worth more as demolished flat land. Just take that building down. It's probably worth more as vacant to a developer. This building somebody may could be creative and do something with it, whether it be office building, where I don't know. Some sort of event center, a church may look to, I don't know. Any of those things are possible, but those funds could be directly used, as well as properties that could be sold where Public Works is, where the park building is, the old fire station. That belongs to the city, and so those properties could be sold for this debt as well, before we issue all of the debt. The street money, I mean, of course, that could be done by project where we'd have to pick the project engineering done. You're quite some time off for even some of that too. So this is not an all hit, but over the next several years, if it's all issued, then the potential for that 12 cent is certainly there. But I think we have to be transparent and let them know that if you vote for this, you could, council in the past has passed bonds and they've not raised the rates to that amount. They've only went part of the way. I guess that's a conversation for y'all to have. And if things get to looking better, which I think there's indications they certainly could, maybe it's 10 cents. I don't know, but I think we have to tell them 12 to be transparent.
On the bonds, if they are issued.
So basically, after 10 years, you can refinance them or pay them off early. That's the standard. Sometimes it's 9. It's about 9 years right now in the market if you had to pay it off. Or you can take, if you had cash aside, you could pay off on the long end with retire maturities early, which some cities are getting that if they can. Get it all cash to these cities.
Is there penalties?
There's no penalties on that.
Any questions?
Don't you wish you were the federal government? We could just print it.
Well, my biggest concern about calling a bond election is the ISD has over $100 million bond that they're going to be working on out there. The night of the council or the school board meeting, it was blown up. People are already starting the negative, no. Having this bond election at the same time as that's going on, I think really makes it difficult, even with a good public knowledge effort and everything that is passed. This election is going to cost $20,000. Would it be wiser to put off calling this election until May of next year instead of competing with the school bond at the same time and have that ordinance opposition knocking us down at the same time? That's my biggest concern right there. Shelly, it's a lot of money to spend for an election that just might, and I would say you're probably looking at worse than 60-40 odds that it's going to pass. Probably more like 90-10 at least.
Yeah.
That's my personal gut feeling.
That's the only reason for the election for the city.
I'm sorry,
The only reason for the election for the city. is the bond.
just a bond, correct.
So if we chose to put off, like the mayor said, until next year or.
If you put it off until May instead of this year, would cost around 21,000. If we wait to May, it's about 5,000 for all of it, including the bond.
Because we're already having it.
That's correct. And that's right. And we won't be contracting it with the county because November elections are different from May, different laws. So in May, we do it here or self-staff does.
Oh.
Siri that picked up something from that, sorry.
I know. I mean, we all want this, like.
We need it.
Well, it's a need more than a want.
But I think. Going at this in the most appropriate manner to, I mean, my biggest complaint was did not go about this properly to have the best bet at it happening. That was my biggest complaint from the previous election. We have to do this in a manner where we are putting our best foot forward. We're standing up for what we're asking for, We have to be realistic about it, and the school barn is just,
Murders.
it is murderous, and
I think
Mike,
Dead Water,
how much money have we already spent? I'm just gonna say propaganda for the bond. Did we do some consulting?
Propaganda?
Well, we spent money already. You have some analyst things.
We've had
We've had some expenditures already.
the facility assessment done.
Recommendation.
We've had that done with the recommendations, and that we still have. We had some initial conversations with, the first architect and we started a process with them. Had some fees, some stuff with them. I don't know those exact amounts. When we decided that we just weren't gonna be able to get through with them, we just couldn't get them off the path they were leading us on. So we went back to a more, went back to our bid, went back to the next slot. We just happened to be a developer or a builder that specialized in pre-engineered metal buildings, which is what we thought we were going to be doing anyway. And so we have begun some of those conversations. There have been some initial renderings done. And at that point, we've got a layout, we've got a rough floor plan, and then we've stopped until we decide what we're going to do here.
Well, I think my suggestion would be for us to tap the brakes and hold off until the first next year and revisit a discussion on how to step forward. As long as we understand we have some value already put into this, and we're gonna have to reevaluate that value when it comes up. So just know that, but I'm kind of like Shirley said, it's kind of like rowing out into the ocean with a rowboat, knowing that you don't have the power to get past the jetties. We're gonna hit rocks if we're not real careful, and I'm tired of getting beat up over that kind of thing when it is a legitimate need. And maybe if we just wait till a better season, hopefully the first of next year brings rain and we get a better feel for this.
but is that
Like tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to.
So as long as there's not a great big expense in that, no, that'd be great for us to continue to roll that.
Mariposa, talking to a group of individuals and get their
Absolutely.
feedback, because I think that's going to help drive. What are their concerns? What are the questions that we need to be thinking about answering? And can we answer that? And we've got a little bit more time to kind of hear feedback from different groups and understand how to approach this.
And maybe closer to getting the public works project. Can be an example of dedication to revitalizing downtown too, and that could be another point. So if we give ourselves another 6 months or so, it could put us in a good position in that sense too.
And something to think about before we call the election, we got a little bit more leeway of doing things before, because once we call it, then we're under strict laws, what we cannot do.
Absolutely.
Once we call the election, city staff can only answer questions of fact. They cannot advocate for the bond.
But like you said, now is a good time to start educating, being very transparent. And then when we call the election, this gives us time to get prepared with what is needed.
I mean, as far as like, can we do an open house and different, different
Absolutely.
buildings and advice?
Absolutely, we can do those things.
Let's make a motion. Whatever we have to do to not call the election, and also let's
No
It's a
action.
no action.
Taking it, we'll-
let's do no action, but let's put this on our agenda for our special meeting, possibly. Keep it on our agenda for discussions anytime we come together, and not like a council meeting, but if we have some good discussions throughout the next few months, let's
How about
keep
it
it on our mind.
rather than, I mean, it's y'all's meeting, but I prefer not to cloud up a budget workshop meeting with this.
No problem.
But if we put it on your like the September meeting, maybe we come back with kind of a detailed plan of action,
Well,
schedule some
Yeah.
events
I
and
think the ads would be for staff to kind of put some pen to paper and
Sure.
let's,
Give us some good points of what you are wanting to do.
right, and where can we help? Like-
Absolutely.
Yeah, where can we be able? to-
Yeah, because you guys can go out and do what you want.
Okay.
We can.
And the law is you just can't spend public funds for advocacy.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see. We'll see you in May.
Yeah.
We always.
January, February, actually, yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
All right. So no action on item number 3, going down to number 4, discuss, consider possible action on approving the 23-24 employee benefits package with United Healthcare, New York Life, and Ameriflex. Ms. Browns.
So like Mike had said, we've worked with our insurance broker and Walking Dunning Benefits, and they've got 2 representatives here. We've got Randy Mills and Kristen Price present. We appreciate them coming down to this evening. We worked hard and reviewed proposals for the 23-24 benefit package. We're excited about our benefits this year. It is a robust package that we're gonna be offering with employees. We have greatly improved our deductibles, our co-pays, with very little impact to the budget, so we're proud of that. There are plan documents that review all of the plan costs in your package. If you have any questions.
I mean, it looks great.
Yes, it does.
I'm very happy. Knowing that insurance costs have gone up
Yes,
a lot.
they have.
I just got one question. Can council members participate?
In 2 years, if we hire you,
I think that is a no.
do you want to borrow my people to negotiate some insurance rates for you at your
I
place? of
absolutely
employment?
do. I wish we had y'all working in my company. So,
Not been an easy process, but once we are we want to be on things. I think they're gonna see a few, like right now for urgent care, they pay $100 a day. We're getting that down to $25. So,
well, it goes to show, and this is sad that things have gone in this direction in society, that the insurance companies have all the power. All the power. And we don't use as a public our buying power, our purchasing power to stop the madness. And I'll just call it that.
Johnny, you got any questions?
I do have one quick, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I forgot, on your, if you look at the, reference sheet that has all of the breakdown of the carriers, so it'll have United, Ameriflex. I do propose that we strike the accident plan with MetLife. I did another review of it today, and I just don't think that it is going to be advantageous to move what we have today. We offer a secondary accident plan through Aflac already, so this is in addition to what we already have. I just don't think that it could be a benefit to the employee, so I'm going to strike.
Okay. Do I?
No problems with that.
I think it's a great idea. Having benefits is more important most of the time than the salaries. Now, I worked with state for 30-something years, and we didn't make any money, but we had.
I'm impressed. And I wish I worked for the city too.
Come see us in 2 years.
Well, I walked in on a couple of discussions that was being had during this process, and I know these ladies have worked very hard. And they sold Mike on the package, and selling Mike's not always an easy process. So
I kept
thank-
saying, yes, you can, yes, you can. And
You
so
can't
they
hit the
did.
no button. So,
Well, I tell you,
it was
anytime
good. More.
The batteries on my no button was almost dead.
anytime you can negotiate benefits, you know, in a way that Mike's been able to budget for the city and keep us within the parameters that he's given is okay with me.
Yeah.
It's really-
This has been a good project. Good job.
Certainly you have worked very, very hard on these benefits. You have done a phenomenal job. On
Earning your pay.
And also the reps of Lockton, we appreciate them working with us. They've been very patient and
Are you guys just like a
putting up with us.
broker or what?
Yes, we're independently, currently held.
they were negotiating up until what, yesterday? They got us a little bit better rates even as of yesterday, so.
Awesome. You can go to improve the budget. That's fine. All right, so you got anything else? Brittany?
No, sir.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 23-24 employee benefits package. United Healthcare, New York Life and Hempstead.
No, we're removing.
Yeah, we have Hempstead, so that's right.
We're keeping American fees from that line. Excellent.
Oh, so the motion that's correct, the packet was, has the other.
Did it say American, or I'm sorry, Medline?
I didn't see that like it.
It was on your summary.
President plan is not moving forward.
It's not on
Okay. So I have a motion by Johnny. I'll second. Merle seconded. Okay, I have a motion by Johnny, seconded by Merle to approve the 2023-2024 employee benefit package with United Healthcare, New York Life, and Ameriflex. All right, any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much for all your hard work. And thank you for your hard work on our behalf. We definitely appreciate it. Item number 5, discuss, consider, and possible action on approving a camera system and Wi-Fi project using ARPA funds. Amber.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I bring this to you, Government Photo Verde. They have been working diligently to keep us, current and in compliance. Our cameras, they're one of our bigger, weak areas. And we have older technology that does have my Chinese code, so it is not compliant with CJIS requirements. But we also have some facilities that need additional coverage. Tyler spoke earlier about the park updates. We're about to put $1 million into a park, and that side of the park is not currently covered by cameras. And then the other side of the park where the ball field area has, I think, less than 5 cameras on it. And the only way we have access is to go there and pull them off of the recorders. So this would give us access to our cameras anytime. Jeff was telling me earlier, we can even look out on our phones. Whereas now we have to be within the city facilities to access them or remoting in. So it's very difficult. The current system that we have only works on Internet Explorer, which has, I think, as of 2 months, it's gone. So I'm one of the very few people that still has access because Terry has managed to somehow keep Internet Explorer on my computer and keep Microsoft Edge from taking over. Every day, can I get into them? Also with this, I'm not sure how familiar you are. We have internet access here that goes under the road to the police department. And then the police department has point-to-point connections on them that feed the animal services, the parks and the public works building. That those antennas and that operating system are extremely old and they're due to be replaced. So that is also a piece of it. In the parks facilities, we'll be providing public Wi-Fi access, which is one of the big points of us being able to use the ARPA funds. So not only will the citizens have access to public Wi-Fi there, but patrol cars can pull in there and use that to offload body cam footage. I believe they said they were gonna light up this intersection here too, so if they're sitting at this light at the train spot, they can also offload, so they're not having to be tied to the back of the police station. That was kind of it in a nutshell. I do have Jeff here and Patrick here to answer any in-depth questions, but this would be fully recabling everything with Cat6. All new cameras, so all new equipment. It's not gonna be a plug and play. It's everything to be brand new. And then in the event we do move facilities, these are all things that can be moved with us. So they're, even if we install it in Public Works and we move them in 6 months to a year, that's all stuff that can be pulled and reused, so.
Will the public access Wi-Fi have to have a password on it?
No, you don't have to have you don't have to create for public access, it can just be open. So it would just be citizen, they just have to, you would have to put a splash page, notify them that you're not responsible for either content that they choose to.
Would that open up any of the city facilities for any malicious?
No, keep them on separate networks, so basically ports in or public versus internal city, and then police would be on a separate SSID as well.
We'll be able to segment all that through the network.
What about the fire department?
Fire department is covered in that. We've got 126 cameras throughout the city, 42 outdoor with infrared. It's all cloud-based system. It's state of the art.
It prevents also having the existing DVRs that you have, like Amber was saying. You have to go to the animal shelter to download it or view it, or you have to go to the concession stand to download and view it. But part of the ARPA is that you need it for crime prevention and part of public access also. So it gives police access to those cameras before they get there. Instant.
And
And it's required.
and those cameras, that's why in the budget, we took the fire department camera stuff out because we knew this
Yeah,
was
this
coming
replaces
later.
every single city. Will all be on the same system. The fire department's on a different tool, so it will kind of, it will really be a lot.
And as far as bandwidth and so on and so forth, for all that, we have adequate bandwidth.
It's all basically backhaul on the fiber that you already have pathways.
Yeah.
So they're gonna hand us off a connection of the concession stand, the splash pad, a couple other little locations, and then we're gonna basically work it all together.
Sounds so simple.
It's not. If it was simple, everybody. We're not in special. Anybody have any questions?
I have a motion to be approved the camera system and Wi-Fi project using ARPA funds.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mike, seconded by Johnny, to approve the camera system and Wi-Fi project using our ARPA funds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, staff reports. If I have any questions on any of the staff reports. Okay, since there's no questions on any of the staff reports, at 8:04, we are going to recess into executive session. The City Council of City of Joshua will recess into executive session. Closed meeting pursuant to provisions of Chapter 551, Subchapter D, Texas Government Code. Discuss the following: one, in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.071 and 551.074, consultation with the city attorney regarding personnel matters and all matters incident related to, and number two, in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.074, to deliberate regarding the appointment, employment, and evaluation of public officer and employee at 8:05. Okay, at 8:30, I'll call the meeting back to order. There's no action required from our executive session. Anybody have any future items they'd like to request? Okay, so at 8:39, this meeting is adjourned.
You did. My favorite.